Okay, so is mindfulness training the right response to this skewed attention economy? Certainly, some people think that it is. So the Dalai Lama is said, I've not found any confirmation that that's true, that to say that if every 8-year-old in the world is taught meditation, we would eliminate violence from the world within one generation. Or Howard Zinn, John Kabat-Zinn, sorry, who sort of invented this mindfulness training, he has suggested that this meditation may actually be the only promise the species and the planets may have for getting through the next couple hundred years. So a lot of promise has been put into this meditation mindfulness kind of approach toward the problem. Now, there's different ways of thinking about meditation. One way it's often advertised is as a practical tool. It's supposed to help you with stress, anxiety, depression, and so on. It's supposed to increase your quality of life, attention spans, positive affect. It's helped to deal with substance abuse, alcoholic, weight gain, pain, and so on and so forth. So that's how meditation is often presented. There's a lot of clinics that are helping that, and I'm in contact with people in Norway who also work with that here. It's massively promoted everywhere. There's apps for it. There's for meditation apps and so on. Some of you might have. Now, is that the way we should react? Should we use mindfulness training to react to these challenges many people face in this new attention economy? Now, let's think about this. So if you want to change something, you want two things. One is you want to target the causal culprit. That is, you want to change, you want to turn the screw where it actually makes a difference to the problem. On the other hand, you want to target the moral problems. You want to target who's responsible for the problem. Right? So if your bike's getting stolen, you want to, on the one hand, find what's efficient to solve the problem. For that, the bike lock might be a good idea. Invest in a more expensive bike lock. On the other hand, it would be weird to only look at that solution to the problem of bike theft. You also want to look at you want to also target the bike thieves. So, if you have a problem like this, you want to also look at who's morally responsible, and like you might want to put them in jail, or you might disincentivize bike theft in some way. So let's look at mindfulness training first. Is it effective? Is it actually causally responsible for the problem? Would mindfulness training change these problems? Okay. When you look at this, there's a meta studies that look at how effective is mindfulness training. So this is the way it's often actually done: 6 weeks of training in addressing issues like depression, anxiety, stress, negative affect, quality of life, so on, those things it's supposed to address, right? Then we see there is a somewhat of an effect. Problem is, this is showing the size of the effect. How much is of an effect is that? These are not zero, so there's some effect, favors meditation, some of it. Problem is, that's comparing to people who literally didn't do anything. So if you compare this to a control group that changed something else in their lives, like, for example, go on a run, there's no change. Now, there's no effect. Meditation is not better than going on a run. Meditation isn't, or mindfulness training isn't better than starting to play an instrument. It's not better at all. It's also important to see that the size of the effect is very small. If you think about this, sort of like I'm portraying these Gaussian distributions, think of like, what kind of how much anxiety problem have. Anxiety problems in people who the red curve were how much problems did they have before the mindfulness training. You shift them slightly away, so that's how much change there is. It's not a lot. So conservative assessment of the effectiveness of mindfulness training, it's not clear that meditation is a very effective practical tool to address these problems. I think that gives first reason to think, well, you shouldn't really address these problems by looking at you and your attention, trying to improve it by training your attention up through mindfulness training. We should look at this ecology in which your attention happens and has been shaped by these advertising companies. So let's then look at who actually is morally responsible. That's an issue that's brought up in this nice book by Ronald Purser, Mindfulness. So he says that what's the problem with the use of meditation and mindfulness training in our contemporary society? It's that it locates the causes of suffering disproportionately inside us, not in the political and economic frameworks that shape how we live. And the stress on our lives are pathologized and privatized. The burden of managing them is outsourced to individuals. Okay. So I think that where we should look at is not ourselves. We shouldn't look at ourselves. We should look at what's the problem with the attention merchants. Okay. So I want to look at two things, mostly at one and a little bit in the other. One is that think of them as engaging in a morally problematic form of manipulation. And second, that they turn something into an object of economic transactions that shouldn't be treated as an economic resource. Okay, so with that, I'm going to do that in the next lecture, part of the lecture.